Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and you're listening to the Forbes Books Podcast. And this week, we're going to be talking about the sports apparel industry, which is gigantic. Even if you're not a huge fan of sports, you probably own a piece of merch with a Yankees or Lakers logo. The industry continues to grow year after year and is expected to be worth $248 billion by 2026. You know the major players in the space like Fanatics that raked in over $3 billion in revenue. But there are many other players in the licensed sportswear vertical that you may not realize how big they actually are. One of them is Sportiq, which has outfitted more than 5 million people across the globe, partnering with the likes of the NBA, Trek Bikes, Warner Brothers, Nintendo, and the Dave Matthews Band. And this week, I'm joined by one of their co-founders, Jason Franklin, who's been involved in the fashion industry since he was a teenager. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Joe, what's happening? Great to be here.
Thank you. And not much going on here, Jason. And I want to start this conversation by talking about streetwear and lifestyle brands. If you're over the age of 40, you probably have no idea what any of that means. They're like, what do you mean, like sweatshirts? So you worked in the streetwear industry before it even had a name. You were a 12-year-old fashion designer back in the old MTV TRL days. And for the folks who are old enough to remember, that's, early 90s.
Right.
What did streetwear look like to you then, and how has that changed? Because you were 12 years old, you took the world by storm, but this was before people even realized what that thing was you were doing.
Yeah, streetwear at that time, we didn't have consumption of social media at that point, so it was, dare I say, magazines and TV, and it really was just all sort of bubbled up into quote unquote fashion. I started out just as a young kid that had this crazy head of hair that wanted to find a solution for it, and I just wanted a cool baseball hat. And growing up in Chicago, in the late 80s, early 90s, everything was around Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and I just wanted a cool Bulls hat. I couldn't find it. My great-grandmother was a clothing designer. My grandmother was a clothing designer. And on Sundays, I would go sit in my grandma's knit shop. And I would just I would sit on her lap and look at fabrics, and she'd show me different things she was knitting. And I wasn't at that point really into sweaters, and I just wanted to make a baseball cap. So I just took it upon myself to start drawing hats of like what I would want to wear. And from there, what do we do as kids at the age of 12 and 13? You can't get a normal job. You can babysit, and I ended up filling in for my sister, who was babysitting for the neighbors across the street. She took sick. I ran over there to go watch the kids, and there's hats, sports hats, all through the house. It was like, if you can imagine, like Willy Wonka back in the day, right? Where Gene Wilder, you open up the doors and it's like there's chocolate and candy and everywhere. Well, I didn't really like candy as a kid, but I just saw all the hats all through the house, and I'm like, this is the greatest house ever. And just walk through the house, trying on the different hats, just looking at them, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. The parents come home, and I ask the dad, I'm like, and the mom, like, what's going on here? Why all the hats? And he's like, well, I own a baseball cap company, and we make hats for all the professional sports leagues. I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I run home and go show you some of the hats that I've drawn? And he sort of looked at me funny. He's like, okay, just sort of, let me just appease this kid and just, okay, whatever. Sure, kid, run home and, come back and show me your designs. And so I started showing him, ran home, showed him some of the designs. And he's like, wow, actually, some of these are really cool. And do you think I can make some? And I'm just like, yeah, that would be amazing. And he's like, well, I know you really want hats for that crazy head of hair of yours, so I'll bring some samples home as soon as I get them. And here, take a couple hats today. And I'm like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And then fast forward it. And I always just sort of, that's what we did. You hit on it, TRL or movies or magazines. I mean, I was sort of that, maybe call me a strange kid, reading more of like the Vogues and some of the different fashion mags that were out there where, most of my peers it was like pretty much Sports Illustrated at that point. And that was it. I was just trying to consume anything I could in the fashion space, looking at different fashion shows from different designers and trying to understand like how we can incorporate that into everyday wear, because some of that fashion wear is really super far forward fashion that not everyone can. Maybe 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 can wear those, and I was trying to figure out how 8 out of 10 could wear those. So 6 months pass. The owner of this company said, hey, there's some people that are starting to buy some of these hats that you designed. You might start seeing them out there. A little more time passes. I go, and again, where do we go consume what's happening in, on trend in the world? We go see movies, and I go with my friends to go see a movie called Poetic Justice with a gentleman who was really, one of the leaders, I would say, in sort of that streetwear category, if you will. It wasn't streetwear at the time. It was just sort of, maybe call it street and maybe call it fashion. Right. Tupac Shakur. And sure enough, within the first few scenes in the movie, he's wearing the first hat that I ever drew.
Wow. And for folks not familiar, what did that hat look like? So what were you doing with hats that was so different that like an icon like Tupac would be like, yeah, I would wear that hat in this movie?
Yeah, so at that point, sports fashion in general was just like, let's slap a logo on a hat or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, and it was an afterthought. And it wasn't really fully thought out. So I was sitting there saying, hey, what are some of the cool fashion elements that are out there that we could start incorporating into, at this time, just the hats? So this was a Chicago White Sox hat that had White Sox really big on the back of the hat, and like in big block text letters. And that was like, at that time, it was like, whoa, you did something besides just put the logo on the front of a hat. As funny as that was, that was really crazy. And then, changing some of the different colors of the panels of the hat. And I started playing around, and just, that really, like, that woke me up in regards to like, whoa, okay, well, if Tupac is wearing the first hat that you ever drew, and he's like the coolest guy ever at the time, like then what's going on in your brain is what you should go follow in your life, and that's your passion, and go do it. And sure enough, then not too far along later, I with some friends sitting there after school watching TRL, and there's Jay-Z and his Girls video wearing a San Diego Padres hat that I drew. Wow. And it just, again, reaffirmed that what I believed at the time was like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in my life. And it just sort of skyrocketed from there.
Wow. I mean, it's really hard, Jason. So I think we're roughly around the same age. We're like Gen Xers. So it's hard for people today to realize what you just talked about as mind-blowing, because now we're in this hat culture where now it's actually okay to wear a hat to dinner or to go out on a date with it. So back then, as you mentioned, hats were very simple. And another thing I want to add for folks who may not remember this, to find a baseball hat of your favorite team was not an easy thing to do. Obviously, the internet wasn't around, but stores didn't sell baseball hats, or even the authentic baseball hats until lids came around. Right. You didn't even see those kind of things available for you. So whenever you saw, and Jason, I'm sure you saw this too, like if you were walking around a neighborhood, maybe in Chicago, and you saw someone wearing a Dodgers hat, you'd be like, where did they get a Dodgers hat in Chicago? Like, how is that even possible? So that's why, like, you're talking about like this, it's so simple what you did, but back then it was so groundbreaking. Isn't it amazing how hat culture has changed so much from those early 90s to now?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like if somebody's walking around in Chicago wearing a Dodgers hat, then you just assumed, wow, then that person must have gone to Los Angeles for vacation or something and went to a Dodgers game and bought that hat. Not like, oh, they went online or something like that, because that just didn't exist. And actually, that's sort of the next part of the story is that, the owner of the company that I was working for was like, what would be really cool? It's like, yeah, you're drawing some really cool hats, but can you come with me to some of the meetings with the CEO of Champs, with the CEO of Foot Locker, and start traveling to some major meetings with with the New York Yankees or some of the big sports teams, and tell them, and explain to them about the hat culture, explain to them that Champs and Foot Locker needs to have hats with every team, or at least the top 10 to 15 teams in every single one of their doors. So here I am as a kid. I don't even have a driver's license, and I'm, on a plane to New York, sitting down with the CEO of Foot Locker, explaining to them that kids want to wear hats with their favorite teams. And I know this might sound blasphemous, but their favorite team, they might live in Chicago, but their favorite team might be the Atlanta Braves, or it might be the Raiders, or whatever it is, and they want to be able to buy those hats in whatever city that they're in. So I was really you'd probably say ahead of the hat fashion world.
Yeah.
And shoot, I wish I could have wore a hat in school. That was the thing that killed me, is I had this crazy head of hair, and I just wanted to wear the hat in school just to cover up my hat. And I was like the happiest guy ever when I could start wearing hats in college. But no hats in high school. And as soon as that bell turned 3:00 in either junior high or high school, I was rocking the hat.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, with these trips to meeting these CEOs of these big stores like a Foot Locker, what did your parents say during all this? That you've got like a corporate job as a teenager, and you're meeting with all these CEOs. What was that like behind the scenes with your fam?
My parents realized very early that, and thanks to them, there is an education in school, and there is an education outside of school. And that I had a very, very, very rare opportunity to get a whole other education. And they were all for it. Believe me, those first few phone calls when they had to call the school to call me out of school because I was not going on a business trip was the nurse at the school got a bit of a chuckle out of it. She's like, "Ha, what's wrong?" She's like, then they'd be like, "No, actually, he's going on a business trip."
That's funny.
I was like a sponge, so I would just go into these cities and try to and meet with these incredible, well accomplished CEOs or directors of retail at a lot of these major companies, and I would just get a chance to sit down and talk to them and tell them my passion around hats, and to try to explain to them that there's a lot more people like me, that a lot of kids out there that were really passionate, and they picked up on it right away. And you can't now go to any mall in America, you can't go to any city without going to, as you mentioned, a Lids, a Champs, Foot Locker, whatever it is, and see a hat wall with all sorts of different teams and all sorts of different hats.
So it sounds like it was not a tough sell when you're on these business trips as a teenager. It did not sound like it was a tough sell to these companies, because you sort of had the proof of concept. It's like, hey, here's Tupac wearing this hat. Here's Jay-Z. These are major stars. So what do you guys think? Like, it wasn't a big sell job, I don't think.
No, and then, wow, this kid's 15 years old or 16 years old and coming to talk to me about this, and he is the market. It's not like I was some 40-something, 50-something, 60-something, because that was what was the norm in the industry of those type of sales guys. And here's a 15, 16-year-old kid coming to tell me what a 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid wants. It was brilliant. I mean, at the time, and so the buyers or the CEOs or the owners of the companies ate it up, and that really sort of started changing the culture of what those stores look like.
It's so funny. Kids are so spoiled today, Jason, and adults too, because so much has changed since when we were kids. But I remember when it comes to sporting goods, the idea of being able to get like a Jets jersey, me being a Jets fan, it was the only way you can get it is every year when the Sears catalog would come out, you'd be able to order one of those really crappy replica Jet jerseys that would say Jet on the front, and the type wasn't exactly the same, but it was the closest you can get. Now you can go on your phone and get the same jersey that Zach Wilson is wearing, and you can have it in your doorstep in 2 days. People don't understand how hard it was to buy like your favorite team stuff back when you were designing this stuff. It's amazing how much that part of it has changed.
Yeah, I thought you were actually going to go back to the East Bay, and that was the other one.
Oh, God, that's true, East Bay. No, I went further back than the East Bay catalog.
East Bay was like, you'd wait for that. At least I would wait for that thing. And that thing would have folded pages and of what I liked, what I didn't like. And But yeah, it's definitely come a long way, and obviously the way we consume fashion too is it's light years from where we started.
Well, let's fast forward to the present day. So,
Sure.
You obviously did pretty well as a teenage designer, worked your way through, became an entrepreneur, and you co-founded this company called Sportique.
Yeah.
So for folks not familiar with Sportique, how would, say you and I were trapped in an elevator, it got stuck, and I would say, hey, what are you doing? You go, oh, I got this company called Sportique. How would you describe it to me?
Sportique is a modern American comfort wear brand that really focuses on elevated basics, and we cater to the fans. And what I mean by that is we're all fans of something. We're all passionate about different things. And I'm passionate about, me personally growing up, I was passionate about fashion and music and sports and food. And in traveling the world like I did at a very young age, I realized that so many different people are passionate about a lot of different things. And when I started going to some of these different venues, I realized that, and talking to people, that they could be passionate about cars, they could be passionate about beer or how beer is made, or they could be passionate about video games, and they all wanted to take something away from some of these venues, saying that they were there. And when we started Sportique, we wanted to create fashion for fans and whatever we could be fans of.
And you can connect with customers through multiple streams. I know you have the website, but where else can people buy Sportique stuff?
Yeah, so Sportique is in every NBA arena, and Sportique is in every NHL, 25 of the NHL arenas across the United States and Canada. And sure, we're in sports arenas, and so we're sort of that better, best product. And people, as you said, are becoming more educated on fashion. And they want now, when they go to these fan venues, whether it's a sports arena, a Nintendo World Store in New York, the Snowbird Ski Resort, or a Trek bike store, or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or the Grand Ole Opry, they are more educated on fashion than ever. And now these retailers, outside of just the regular boutiques and department stores, are becoming more educated and saying, wow, we're having this very educated and elevated fan coming to our venues, and they're used to a boutique or department store fit, fabric, and feel, and now we need to create product for that fan. So that's really where Sportique came in and said, we can be this sort of fashion house for fans. For brands that are for their fans that are looking for more elevated fit, fabric, and feel to provide to their customers.
So talk to me about the licensing part of things. Did that
Sure.
was that a big focus at first, where you were like, or did you first try to make sort of one of a kind of stuff?
No, we actually, when we first started Sportique, we had our first week of meetings. One was with the NBA, and my business partner was running the team shops for the Phoenix Suns and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so we got a meeting with the NBA and sort of showed them some of the ideas. We had like 6 or 7 samples that we had, and sort of showed them the idea that you now have a more elevated consumer coming to the games. And, you talked about my one side of what I did growing up and designing apparel. My other side was I was the ball boy for the Bulls for the second 3 championships. And one of the things that I realized is people were flying in from all over the world to see Michael Jordan and watch Dennis Rodman and the Bulls. And they were paying thousands of dollars for tickets. They were paying thousands of dollars on airfare and hotels and food and meals. And they wanted more higher end fashion that was being offered in the team shops. It was a jersey, it was an uncomfortable t-shirt, an uncomfortable sweatshirt, and a few hats. And that was really it. And a lot of people were going to they had 20,000 people in these arenas a night. And, most of the people were just walking by the team shop and saying, there's nothing there for me. So we went to the NBA, we told them, you have a fan you have a displaced customer. And Nike's making the jerseys, great. They do all the on-court stuff, fantastic. What Sportique wants to do is focus on that more fashionable product that has the right fit, that has the right fabric, that has the right feel of what your customers are starting to look for. So the NBA is like, we get it. We're going to give you a license. And that is like literally on the spot. And
wow.
That doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. So we got an NBA license right away. And thanks to the NBA and their vision for allowing Sportique to do that. And then we left New York and took a trip down a little closer to you, to Charlottesville, Virginia, because there was a band there that was based out of there that you might have heard of, called the Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Yeah.
And I started, again, as I traveled the country as a younger kid, a friend of mine took me to a Dave Matthews Band concert in high school, and I was blown away. And I was talking to people, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm from Indiana, and I've driven to Wisconsin and Chicago and to Michigan," and people were traveling around to see the band and just incredibly passionate about the songs. And so my partner Matt and I were like, well, these guys have a really passionate fan base that is wanting to spend more than $25 on a concert t-shirt, that's wanting to spend more than $45 on a sweatshirt and $20 on a hat. So we went to the band and explained to them that you also have a higher end customer that's coming to the shows, that wants to have the right fit, the right fabric, they might come to a few shows, but they want to take something away from that show that says that they were there, that they can have as that memory that will last them a lifetime. That favorite sweatshirt or t-shirt that we all have in their closet that they can put back on and remind themselves when they were at that concert. And they saw some of the samples that we did and said, okay, like if you can help raise our retails and you can help sell more product with some of this nicer stuff, then let's do it. And so we were able to work with the Dave Matthews Band right away. So we had within the first week, we had Dave Matthews and the NBA as sort of our first two clients. And that really is one of the things that helped skyrocket Sportique right out of the gate, because those two brands, if you will, really helped give us the reputability that we needed to grow the company.
Let's talk about the license part of this, because obviously that's a big part of the way you guys launched. But how does it work? And without getting too in the weeds of percentages and costs or anything like that, can you just break down how that works? Because maybe an entrepreneur's listening and they want to get into, maybe their business is ready to make that step where they're ready to work into licensing, whether it's a band or whether it's an NBA team or something like that. Give me some of the background in terms of how that actually comes together and works.
That's a huge loaded question.
It is. Okay. I had a feeling it was. Yeah.
Every league is different.
Yeah.
And and now with, you sort of touched on it before, with Fanatics involved, who's trying to be completely vertical, and they're one of our good customers, and we really enjoyed working with Fanatics. But what I would say to the people that are trying to understand the licensing part of the world is you really need to have a unique product. In the league's minds, for the majority of the leagues, they're going to tell you that most of the licenses are already sort of in whatever department you could think of are already spoken for. So what is really making your product unique and different? Then also one of the big questions you need to ask yourself if you're starting a company is, what is the white space? What is the additional revenue that I can help bring to the league? Because if you're just going to say, well, I'm doing something similar to this brand that's already licensed, then and I'm only gonna sell it to these venues, then they're like, great, we already have that covered, thanks, but no thanks. So that's what makes it very, very difficult. But what's Sportique, how we sort of positioned ourselves is, we were that right fit, the right fabric, the right fashion that we could develop year in and year out. But I think what made Sportique very unique at the time when we first started is we understood that what I would call the hot market situation better than most. And when we first started, it was companies that were out there, and they still exist, and we don't need to name them, but they make these stores or teams buy 12 months in advance, 18 months in advance, 9 months in advance. And when they sell out of that product, they're out. They can't replenish them in season. So what Sportique came and said is, we will be vertical, where we will design and manufacture all of our own product blank. We'll bring that to our facility in Phoenix and embellish everything there. So when a team, let's just take the Phoenix Suns a few years ago, when the Phoenix Suns came out of nowhere and went on a crazy win streak, there was not one other vendor that could provide product. in the time that they needed it. I mean, they were blowing out of product literally by the game. And Sportique, whether it was the Suns or the Milwaukee Bucks or you name the team that would go on a crazy win streak in the playoffs, we're able to provide that on-trend fashion to the team shop or the local retailer within the season.
Huh. And one more thing on the license thing. So
Sure.
People who consume media, they probably see like, hey, so-and-so has the license for this, so-and-so has the license for that. When someone has the license for something, are you paying for the company paying for that license to be able to make these products, and then that brand takes a piece? Can you just give me, without going into specifics, like what exactly is the investment in a company that gets involved in licensing?
It's a massive investment. So because if you're able to, fill out the 1,000-page application to become a licensee, right? Because there's all that now. And you pass all of these other tests, then you sit there and then they're like, okay, well, how much can you sell? And then give us a 3-year plan of what you're going to sell. Okay, so let's just, for math's sake, okay, you said you're going to sell $1 million in year 1, you're going to sell $2 million in year 2, you're going to sell $5 million in year 3. Okay, we want what we call a minimum guarantee. So let's just say our royalty rate is 20%. Ooh. Which it's sometimes more than that. Give us a check for that amount, for that minimum guarantee. So you quarterly payments of that minimum guarantee to the league.
Got it.
So you better be darn sure. And that's the thing is some of these brands are just, we got to get this license. We got to get this license. Well, the minimum guarantees that some of these brands are paying are so exorbitant that they're underwater on their deals.
Wow.
So if that makes sense, you're seeing some brands, the largest ones out there that want some of the on-field rights, on-court rights, on-ice rights, whatever they are. I know this sounds crazy, but sometimes they lose money on those deals, and they're just looking at it as a marketing expense. I talk to young brands all the time that are like, we're starting out, and should we go get a license for these leagues or should we not? I always tell them buyer beware, because if you're able to be lucky enough to get said license, you could still lose a significant amount of money with that license, because you've got to be able to be darn sure that you can sell your product and sell enough of it to where you could be profitable. So where because the league's going to make their money, the team's going to make their money selling said product, but if you don't have your house in order, if you will, you could be out of business very quick.
It also reminds me of the chicken and the egg sort of conundrum, because some of these companies, it's like, I know if I get this license, I'll make this, but if I don't get that license, it's you don't know, right? It's a gamble in all parts of it.
Yeah, so we love the license world. There's a few other sports that we're in communication with right now because they do want the fans are shouting very loudly, and the teams are shouting very loudly that they want to start carrying Sportique products. So we're getting some inbound phone calls. So we're very fortunate of that. But we knew right away when we started Sportique that it was going to be very difficult to go get all the licenses. So how do we position ourselves to cater more towards fans that aren't necessarily, we need a license to go sell some of those companies? Where are some of the other retailers out there, destination retail as we like to call, that are out there that are getting huge amounts of traffic, that are selling a significant amount of product, and sometimes even more than an arena or a sports retailer, that we don't even have to get a license for, that we can just sell them and we're out. So that was the big part. That was the big aha moment at Sportique was, licensed sports is cool, but what can we do outside? Where else can we bring the fashion and the Sportique model to? And that's really what helped catapult the business.
And looking at your the aforementioned website, I noticed that I guess it was a big thing. It's no longer something that people talk about anymore, but athleisure is what comes to mind for folks who remember then everyone was trying to make athleisure. What did you think about that trend? Especially remember during the pandemic, everyone's like, oh my God, no one's ever going to wear pants again. No one's going to need a belt. Everyone's going to be athleisure. Now, you guys, obviously a big core of your product is, for lack of a better word, athleisure. But talk to me about that sort of mindset of like making clothes that's could be good for the office and at home.
Yeah, Sportique, when we started, we wanted to make the most comfortable product in your closet, period. Like, so when you saw that red woven label with the buffalo on it, you knew like right away, like that was going to be your favorite t-shirt or sweatshirt in your closet. And one of the things that was kind of funny is like, we wanted you to be able to wear the product wherever you roam. We talk about people roaming in comfort. We all roam. And whether you're going from the couch to the fridge and that's your big roam of the day, or you're, going on a trip around the world, you want to roam in comfort. And, in the pandemic, everyone sort of like, we were getting phone calls and emails from a lot of our clients saying, I wore your joggers, or you wore your daily joggers or your Olsen hoodie when I got home from work, but now it's like, it is my everyday, it is my uniform. And it really allowed them to have that aha moment, and they were dealing with a lot of craziness at their work, but they were able to put that Sportique product on and, instantly become comfortable. And so many brands, I think that like, during the pandemic, like, oh, we make comfort product too. And now everyone's sort of jumping into the pool like, oh, we do comfort wear and we do, make the most cozy stuff and we do the most comfortable stuff. And, Sportique stood for that since we started, over 16 years ago.
Wow. It's crazy that you guys have been around for 16 years. You guys are sort of like silent assassins. Like, you guys have been building up this base, creating all this product, but for the layperson, they probably didn't even know Sportique was making the stuff they were buying, whether it was at a concert or at their local sports venue. How important was it for you guys to build that base sort of silently, where you didn't have to come out guns a-blazing and be like, hey, we're Sportique, it's all about us? You guys put the sort of like the look and the licensing first before you really kind of boasted about yourselves.
Yeah, we went completely backwards than what most
yeah.
apparel companies. We literally like, let's just do the complete opposite of what all the other so most companies are like, we got to get the brand out there and the name out there and do a bunch of marketing around the brand and the name, and we're just like, let's go find the brands that people are most passionate about, whatever they're passionate about. So whether it's the Grand Ole Opry or the Ryman Auditorium or some of the other, or the Nintendo World Store in New York, or the Trek Bike Store, or the Yamaha retail store, or wherever it is that people are going that they're passionate about, you can find Sportique product. In addition to the NBA arenas or the NHL arenas, or you go to a music festival, you can find the Sportique product, and that's where we've now been getting our customers coming to Sportique.com because they're like, or when we're in a conversation or doing some of these podcasts, people will inevitably go into their closet and put on their favorite hoodie or put on their favorite t-shirt from the New York Knicks or Rock Hall of Fame or wherever it is. And they'll now look at the back neck or that red woven label and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize for the past 10 years, my favorite t-shirt that I wear every day, or my favorite sweatshirt I wear every day, is Sportique. Yeah. And now I want to go buy all the colors of this Olsen hoodie or the Rowan hoodie or whatever it is. But so now we're helping connect the dots. And now we're starting to go back into the marketing and be like, hey, by the way, go check out that favorite sweatshirt or t-shirt in your closet. You know that it's actually Sportique, and now you can go to Sportique.com without the U, by the way, and you can go buy that t-shirt or sweatshirt. It's not going to say whatever brand or team, but it's just something that, it's an everyday basic that you can wear to roam in comfort.
That's funny. It's so funny that you said that, because it's something similar to what I did, because I remember years ago I was at Citi Field and I bought this Mets t-shirt and it was from 47 brand. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but it's cool. And I remember like, my God, this is like an awesome shirt. I want to buy more stuff from 47 brand and see what else they have that is of that quality. So it's funny that you see that now, where you'll see folks like yourself and a 47 brand make that part of the brand, sort of like co-branding. It's, you're buying this thing that is what your favorite team, but it has this brand attached to it, which you never really used to see outside of like the Nikes, Reeboks, and Adidases of the world. You're seeing all these startups like yourself and 47 brand doing that.
Well, that's really the evolution, Joe, of where we're going. Is where now these destination retail places, like I've mentioned, whether it's an NBA arena or you name it, they now want that more department store boutique feel in their retail store. So Sportique actually is now building that sort of boutique department store shop in these venues across the country. So, to help with the marketing, to help build the brand awareness, to know that it's not just a Phoenix Suns sweatshirt, it's a Sportique Phoenix Suns sweatshirt, or it's not just a Snowbird ski hoodie, it's a Sportique Snowbird ski hoodie. We're now building some of that, some fixtures and signage in these destination retail venues to really continue to build the brand awareness.
And lastly, you mentioned your connection to the Chicago Bulls, that you were a ball boy during their heyday. And for a lot of younger people, The Last Dance, the incredible documentary on ESPN that told the story of the final championship of the Chicago Bulls, that was their first opportunity to understand and feel how big the Chicago Bulls were in the 90s. So you being there, did the documentary do a good job of capturing that moment in time?
I thought it was really good. I mean, what I agreed with was, and Michael came out and said it, and I think that was his concern about doing the whole documentary, was he felt that a lot of people might come off as a jerk, as not a nice person in this documentary, and people might not like me. But what I think really came across was his desire and passion to win, and his desire and passion to take his team and make them all work together to win championships. And I think if you could take that away from the doc, I mean, there's a lot of funny stories and a lot of things. And again, I said, we need another podcast to go through some of the different stories that I experienced with those guys. But if you take one thing from an entrepreneurial side of it, is how Michael's passion to win and how much he worked on that goal to win championships and how much he wanted to have his team win. And it was great. I really loved it because I think it gave my Sportique family an inside look on my mindset. At Sportique, I want to win. We want to win so badly. And we are taking this team and we're going to win championships. We're going to win multiple championships. We're going to be the best. And it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to work after practice to be the best. But if we do this, if we follow this, we will be the best. And so I think that comes across from Michael and from Phil and from some of the guys on that doc. And I thought it was a pretty fair doc in regards to what you saw was legit.
And so was your team at Sportique afraid that you would punch them like Michael punched Steve Kerr? Or was that something you intimidated one with? Hey, watch this documentary because this is what you're gonna have to deal with.
No, let's not go that far. I'm not punching anybody. We're all about roaming in comfort and making people more comfortable in their everyday life at Sportique. So I do actually have a picture of me as a ball boy with Steve Kerr, where I'm grabbing his warm-ups from the court there, but I'm looking at it as we speak. But I think just the desire and the passion, and when people see, whoa, Jason's replying to emails at 2:00 in the morning. Jason's, in his 17th city in 14 days, just setting the tone for the team of how bad I want it. I think that's really what comes across, is that in order to win championships, it's not just like an overnight success thing. You've got to work hard at it.
His name is Jason Franklin. He is the co-founder of Sportique, and no, he will not punch anybody if things get rough. But Jason, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the time. Take care.
And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.